so nice to see this many people in the audience for a panel on LatAm activity. I mean, this is our Links America session, but not always LatAm gets a lot of focus and attention, so this is really exciting. I want to thank you guys for joining the panel today and for your time. My name is Brianna Kernan. I've been with Chainalysis for over 3 years, managing our go-to-market for Latin America. And I'm really excited to be here with these 3 companies who I think are actually some of the most important companies in Latin America for not only just traditional finance, but crypto as well. So why don't we kind of kick it off? We have traditional finance, we have asset management, and we have crypto native here. So why don't we kick it off with some introductions, and you guys can kind of take it from there.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I work for Itaú. That's the largest bank in Latin America, 100,000 people, 15,000 in technology. We try to develop things in-house, but we are making now a lot of partnerships as well. So we are about 5,000 branches, and it's the largest bank in Latin America. I run the digital assets, so I'm not the CEO of Itaú, but thank you, I wish.
You should be.
I wish, but now. I run the digital assets, so I'm the CEO for Itaú Digital Assets. We are building a tokenization platform and custody for cryptocurrency. So this is going to be token as a service, not only to tokenize Itaú assets, but also the financial industry.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Felipe Vallejo from Bitso. Just as a brief intro, I see you know Bitso, that's great. Bitso is the largest, we used to define ourselves as the largest crypto exchange in Latin America. Now we define ourselves as the largest financial services provider powered by blockchain. So I'll talk about that later on. We're more than 700 Bitsonuts in the world, 34 nationalities now. We're a remote company. If anyone wants to join, happy to chat.
He's recruiting.
I also feel bad there. But and basically, we serve Mexico, Argentina, Colombia since yesterday, Brazil, El Salvador in a very interesting project that everyone heard about. And that's it. I'm the Chief Regulatory Officer there. I basically handle policy, which is one of the things that's most important in Latin America. It's very different. I saw the panel before ours, and basically it's like a completely different mindset in Latin America and the way you handle regulation. And basically, I'm the showman. We have the Chief Legal Officer of Bitso here, Alfonso, who's the mastermind, the legal mastermind here. I'm just the showman, but basically that's it. And happy to talk more about Bitso and crypto in Latin America.
Great. So I'm Bruno Sousa. I'm the head of global expansion at Hashdex. Prior to that, I was the head of legal, actually. So we have a lawyer up here as well. I'm with the team since the beginning. Well, we founded the firm early 2018 with the vision of being a crypto asset manager. So an asset management company focused only on crypto. We always had the vision of creating the world's first crypto ETF. We did that, actually, in Bermuda. So people think it's Canada. It was actually Bermuda, then Canada, then Brazil. And in Brazil, we have now 6 or 7 crypto ETFs trading on B3, which is something very unique. Brazil today is the most developed country in the world in terms of crypto ETFs. Aside from that, we have ETPs in Europe, some private funds in the US, surely publicly traded funds in the US. So we are, with that global vision of a company coming from Brazil, coming from LatAm, expanding globally, focus on crypto all the time, and in the bridge between traditional finance and crypto.
Thank you, guys. Now, considering the reasons for crypto adoption and use case vary widely across the region, how does that shape your strategy depending on the markets that you operate in?
Yeah, happy to join in. But basically, what we've seen, we were originally from a Mexican company. That was the only market we served. And we thought ourselves if we were so successful in Mexico, we could basically extrapolate that to every country in Latin America. And that was completely wrong. When you say Latin America, it's not homogeneous. And we're talking about the Brazilian context, which is super different. The Argentinian context is super different. So basically what we did is we started sitting down with stakeholders, basically regulators, policymakers, to understand the context. So you have basically in Mexico things like remittances. We're doing We did last year $1.5 billion in remittances from the US to Mexico out of 40 billion, which is significant in my opinion. We're shooting for 10% of the market this year. But then when we talked about remittances in Argentina, there are capital controls there, no? So Argentinians were like, your product here doesn't matter. We actually can't do it. It's illegal. No? So in Argentina, the use case is different. Basically, what you have is people buying stable coins to just keep their value, and then they when they get their salary, basically, they exchange that for a stable coin, and then back to pesos, Argentinian pesos, to when they need to spend them, no? To keep their value. And in Brazil, it's a different use case. Probably investment. The investment use case is one of the largest one. You can talk more about it, but but basically you have different use cases in Latin America and different frameworks you have to adapt. There's a crypto bill in Brazil that's different from the one that came out in Mexico. In Argentina, it's a complete tango, just to make sense of it. So basically, when people, I was listening to the previous panel, and they were like super sure about the answers, and when you say what's happening in Latin America, you need to like zoom in and go country per country, no?
Absolutely. Any contribution to Brazil, and how you guys, anything unique to Brazil?
No, I think that's the key thing, that the countries are very different. And sometimes you have this tendency just to say like Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America. These are very different countries. I had the fortune of living in several of them as a kid, in Argentina, Paraguay, Venezuela, Brazil. So I have a lot of connections to these places. And to go to things like, Mexico and Argentina have a thing. Argentina and Chile have a thing. Brazil and Argentina. So Argentina, I love Argentina, but these countries are very different, right? So thinking that the approach is going to be the same, that's a mistake. But we do see some things that are happening in the region as a whole, right?
In our latest Geography of Crypto report, you can read more about the differences per country, but it's really fascinating to read about how the Brazilian crypto market operates versus the Venezuelan crypto market. And one use case specific to Latin America that I don't think I've seen anywhere else, I mean, it might be in other developing regions, is peer-to-peer payments for remittances. And so it got a little complex, the use case that I saw, but it is pretty interesting once you go deep. Okay, so speaking of interesting and specific use cases, we have seen the tokenization market in Brazil gaining some popularity across the region, but especially in Brazil. And Vanessa, let's go to you. What do you see or believe for the future of the market in Brazil or in the region?
I'm betting my career on that, so I believe in tokenization. We are today the field is dominated by fintechs, right? And several startups are starting this, and we can see the regulators getting close and trying to understand better what's going on. I believe that for the financial industry, to use the technology to tokenize our own assets, what we are doing is trying to democratize the investment through tokenization, right? So I believe that getting the things for investment banking and getting to the retail is something that we are going to expose the retail clients for products that they do not have access today. So I think that this is where we should be going. So with the democratization and also the use of stable coins, right? That's nothing more than a token as well. And we are using, and we have several use cases as well, even with the central bank in the sandbox, doing with Colombia actually, a sandbox for remittance. So I think that tokenization is something that we started in Itaú through the tokenization. Now we are getting to crypto. We are working several exchanges on cryptocurrency and see how we can partner. And we also invested in one exchange this year, and a Brazilian one. And we do believe that the market is going up. We do not see an incumbent, so I don't see the big banks getting into it. So what I think that it's good for us to go first, but I can see the movement going.
Okay. Any of you guys have any comments on tokenization? No.
I think some of the initial players that we saw, not only in Brazil but in other places, so you always have a little bit of the dichotomy between traditional crypto players and market players coming in. And tokenization is a clear example where you need the suits that understand capital markets and securities laws so that you're doing things right. And that's why it doesn't have the size today that some people maybe foresaw in the past. It's because it will happen once you get regulation right, and that means issuing things right and making sure if it's a security, you're doing your proper securities offering. But then even on top of that, there's some things on the rails of the way financial markets work that you can't properly have full-blown large offers. A good example in Brazil, if you look at securities laws and you're doing an IPO, you need some things behind in terms of the custody and how you're registering assets and things like that. And those roles are attributed to the incumbents today, and B3 and other players like that. So until the tech party is even solved and incorporated into law, it's still going to be a niche, something that you can do tests, you can do small, but at some point inevitably it cracks and becomes a big thing. So I think we can all agree that it will. Maybe Vanessa will be the CEO of Itaú because our business will be the largest business in the bank, right?
So let's talk about current regulations then. How has the regulatory landscape as it is now affected your strategy, and how do you think the updated regulatory landscape here in maybe a quarter or two will affect your strategy across the region?
I think I can just give a little intro there on regulation and that being aware, because it's a question we get all the time. Where is regulation going? Regulation is not a single thing. You have different agencies doing different things, and that impacts businesses in different ways. So a good way of thinking is that, a simple way of thinking is you have tax regulation, you have capital markets regulation, banking/monetary regulation, and then general consumer law, criminal law, and things like that. So when you're looking at a different country or a given country, you're thinking, how is this in that stage, right? So Brazil, for example, has very detailed rules on tax, on crypto taxes. They've been there for a few years. Not so much on capital markets, but enough for us to launch the ETFs. Very little on the banking side. And then general consumer protection laws, you don't need anything else to cover that, right? So then it goes back to, it depends on what product you're trying to launch in a given market, and it goes to, to your experience saying, I can do this in Mexico, but if I go to, foreign exchange operations in Argentina, that's not going to work. Like, is the rule there already? How's it going to play out? So it's useful to think into that, but in a general sense, it's evolving like in other places, and I think if you're having that experience, right?
Well, no, absolutely, and like, Bruno, I think he's right. Like, there are different angles to regulation. When you say regulation, it's not just like financial regulation. You have fiscal, whatever. But just like on Bitso's experience, like a lot of the exchanges in the past years have avoided touching the financial system. So basically, they kept themselves as crypto as possible, no? Because it's an asset. It's not like, basically it wasn't deemed clearly a financial instrument in some countries, blah, blah. But our thesis was from the beginning to be a connection between the traditional systems. So basically in Latin America, that means connecting to the central bank's payment system. So then as soon as you touch that, you're in the regulatory arena, no? On the regulated arena, no? And like, just an anecdote, our first employee in Bitso was the compliance officer. Like, they were the founders and then the compliance officer, and the investors were like, you're crazy. What are you doing with our money? No, you need to hire like engineers, and you need to hire product people, blah, blah. And we hired a compliance officer because we knew clearly that we needed to connect to payment systems to be successful. That was our business model. And what we're seeing in the region is basically now exchanges that were all crypto trying to connect to these payment systems, and they're struggling because they didn't build the regulatory capabilities beforehand. And now when they tell them like, oh, do you have this control, or do you have this KYC limit, they either bullshit, or sorry for the French, either they'll bullshit, or they need to create it on demand, no? So you know this because we've used Chainalysis for a while, no? So yeah, that's one. And the second part of it is countries are now in Latin America creating their own crypto bills or crypto frameworks, no? Before, you could basically operate from wherever you want. And now Brazil has a crypto bill that's just passed the Congress. Yeah. Mexico has already a law that includes crypto. Argentina, nothing is happening, but like it might happen at some point. And Colombia is already working in something. So basically now there are local regulatory frameworks coming out. So that's going to change the game a lot because now you're going to have specific rules on that.
I think that specifically, just to add for Brazil, the bill that's coming, right? It is very broad, and that's good because we touch in every single aspect of crypto, from token digital assets, stablecoins, and custody. But by the same time, from the people that do not know exactly what it means. So for us, being close to the regulators and try to put our vision as well and how the controls can be done, right? What the tools they may have, I think that it's very important. Right?
Yeah, and there's one thing that regulation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because the market is pushing for something and the regulator has to take a position. That's why our role, and I know that that's the philosophy in Hashdex always has been around that, being with the regulator very close and pushing towards the right direction. That's why how we got the ETFs. That's why we're working with self-regulatory agencies, the IRS, and other firms, other agencies in that sense. So if you're in a given country and saying, "Oh, this is not moving," it's because the market's not there. If you saw, for instance, in the crypto fund side in 2017, when you had the boom, you had all these funds in Brazil wanting to do crypto. And then CVM said stop. And then you had a crash and nobody wanted to do it. So that was the time to do it. That's when we went forward and said, let's build this rule, build this, and build that. I think the danger comes when the discussion is too broad. And that's the concern that we had in Brazil. It went to Congress. And then, for every congressman that knows what it's doing, you have, 50 that don't in crypto. Crypto's hard. Luckily, in Brazil, the bill is broad enough that the main actual things that will happen will be probably with the central bank in the end, which is very technical and very good. Then, the other side that you have is that sometimes it takes too long to do things, right? So then it's finding the balance and the regulator being a good regulator in that sense, that you have clear rules, but you're not stopping things too much, right?
I think that the only good thing is that it covers, it's a federal law, so we don't have by state, what makes our life a little bit easier.
And it's principle-based, which is nice for crypto. It's such a fast-moving company that, I don't know, countries like Gibraltar or something like that, so those places are good examples of that principle-based laws work.
So Felipe, maybe a question for you, considering Bitso is a regional company, which regulators do you think are getting it right?
All of them.
All of them.
Any regulators here? Absolutely, all of them. Just kidding. But we're talking about Brazil. To be honest, that's probably one of those. I can't recall any better effort. And let's see how it goes with the secondary regulation when it goes to the central bank. But just the general framework, the Brazilian law is good because it's principle-based. It defines what a crypto asset is. It defines that, well, at least it gives the power to central bank to create KYC standards, cybersecurity standards, custody standards. It covers what it should cover, and it leads to a secondary regulation that changes faster what it needs to lead to a secondary regulation. So that's, I think Brazil is pretty good. Then the Panama law that just came out, Panama is a very specific and sui generis case because the legal tender there doesn't exist. They have a two-tier monetary system. It's kind of a weird place in that regard. But just that definition of what a crypto asset is, if you wanna, I think it's one of the best in the region.
Are you excited now?
Yeah, it's just kidding. No, I probably have to get my phone and read it. But basically, it's very well crafted. And then the other way to regulate this is you don't need to create a crypto law to regulate this. You could do it by changing secondary regulation, giving guidelines. Like in Colombia, they created the sandbox, and it was nice because they've been creating secondary regulation based on the sandbox. On what we're also there, just doing on and off ramp in the payment system, and then we do the exchange and whatever. But they're learning, and as they learn, they didn't create a new law. They're changing current laws. No? That's another solution, which is it's been okay. Yeah.
And an interesting thing is that I was having a discussion with a self-regulatory agency the other day, and they had the PowerPoint presentation saying what was happening in different countries and saying, well, what should we copy and things like that. And so, we don't have to copy anybody, because some of the most interesting regulation in crypto is happening not in Europe and not in the US, definitely. Europe and the US have been left behind in the way they've been treating crypto for the past few years. So you look at places like Mexico with the fintech law, Brazil, some things you're looking at in Switzerland, Singapore. That's where you should be looking at. Those are the countries getting it right, right? And I think it's a good thing for the US and European regulators to look at what's actually happening in other places. I think a good example is you have the ETF discussion here in the US around the spot Bitcoin ETF. As a theoretical thing, what might happen, we have these products trading in Brazil for over a year. Look at it. They're trading very close. They're replicating Bitcoin perfectly. You had lots of volatility. The product is there. It's not blowing up. It's a huge $700 million product, right? So these things, sometimes the discussion is stale. Some things you were reading in the press in 2018. The world's a lot different right now, right? So it's great seeing that in some places, even states or cities, like seeing initiatives here in New York and Miami, are looking at it, the right angle, because it's a huge market and should be treated like that.
Okay, cool. So switching gears a bit, for those of you with institutional investment and involvement, how do you see institutional players starting to adopt crypto as an acceptable asset class?
Oh, I don't know
Vanessa.
if you want to start with this, Vanessa?
Yeah, we are being pushed, right, for the market. But as an incumbent, we have to follow the rules and waiting for regulations, right? But we starting exposing our clients through Hashdex, and that's what's our first offering through ETFs. Now I see that we can explore a little bit more and go through, our prop trading, offering through an exchange to our retail customers. So I believe that we are getting there now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in an interesting position because asset managers, they stay like in the middle of the road, right? So the normal thing would be, in terms of investors, there's always the discussion of when institutional coming, right? Institutional is always coming, but it comes in waves and different places. What you normally see is, first of all, talking about institutional space, hedge funds, macro hedge funds, aggressive hedge funds, you see they have been investing for some time in single-family offices. And that has to do with the type of risk that each of these firms can take and the mandate that they have. You go to a multi-family office, that's a different thing, right? A single-family office has to make money for that owner. A multi-family office has other concerns. And then the other things, and then you go into the big banks. I think what was different in Brazil especially is the acceptance that the large banks had and understood very quickly with our funds and with ETFs and then with other players. This is a legitimate asset class. Investors want this. I need to create a way for this to happen so that it's as safe as possible, as regulated as possible, and so on and so forth. So it's, again, to those things that sometimes we're looking abroad for solutions, we have things in Brazil with Itaú, for instance, that you don't see anywhere else, right? And it's, I think it's something to be proud in the sense that we're pushing the agenda of what traditional finance can do with crypto, and it's not the boogeyman. There's there lots of interesting things happening if you get the size of your exposure right, and we always have that. Don't overextend yourself. If you don't do that, you'll be fine over time.
Yeah, and like Brazil is probably like a great example because it's exception in Latin America. Like you have this news of Banco Galicia in Argentina. They launched this thing where they started offering crypto to their clients. It's I think it's the biggest bank in Argentina and probably the most traditional one. And they were offering Bitcoin to their clients, and it lasted 24 hours. The central bank was like, no, like you're not gonna do this. And they thought they had like the green light from they went to the central bank. We know they went into meetings on the like middle levels, blah, blah. And then, so basically in countries like Mexico, Colombia, probably just Brazil is the exception. The central banks especially wanna keep like a distance between like the traditional financial system and in crypto. They just like, like you can, in Mexico there was this phrase by the central bank governor who said like there needs to be like a healthy distance between those two systems. It's not prohibited or anything. We actually have a crypto as a service thing for institutional players, and they do care a lot about, one, if you're regulated, you have an advantage in terms of like getting those investors and getting those like, those clients. Number two, for example, Bitso has focused a lot on getting insured and like their assets insured. We're probably one of the few platforms in Latin America. I don't know any other platform that has actually an insurance on like a cybersecurity insurance and like whatever. And then the other part, they do care a lot about AML standards that you have. They because they're regulated sometimes. No?
It was very sad to see what happened in Argentina, right? It was 1 week.
It was fun.
1 week.
It was fun, but it was sad, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of, it was IMF that actually said to the government, right? Yeah. The flow of, you have to control the flow of dollars leaving the country, and now you allow crypto, so how can you control that? Yeah. And that's why they got banned cryptocurrency. And that's what we are afraid of. You know, if a huge bank goes to the public and say that we are doing something, and maybe we can affect the whole market, right? For the good and bad way. So that's why we are very concerned and cautious about how can you do it right, so we don't get back, you know, the entire industry.
Yeah, there's some magic there in getting the regulator comfortable and not letting them regulate through omission, which is what usually happens. If you take funds, that's easier because if you're fitting the investment fund into the rules that exist, there's nothing the bank can say, you know, the central bank can say. If you go and you're building an exchange inside the bank, that's very different. We had a case a few years ago of a large platform that built it, and they had to put it outside of their corporate, you know, chart because, you know, the central bank said, no, I don't want this inside there because they're Basel rules or whatever, right? So and they have that power to, even if the rule is not there, they're kindly asking you not to do it, and you don't want to be, you know.
They're very polite and say, it's better not.
Yeah,
but they do say that.
But you know, and that's particular to Latin America. The rules are not clear. It's that you need to read between lines. And if you're not close to a regulator, then stuff happens, no?
But you know, to your point about the IMF, and I think in the beginning we were talking about trends. I think what's different in Latin America is that we are flexible by nature. We're more flexible with things because we've lived in volatile countries with things changing all the time, especially when we go into investments and money. Very volatile, very strange situations happening. I mean, you had government seizing assets in Brazil, in Argentina, in other places. You look at, so that leads to people being willing to invest in crypto as an asset class just because they see the upside and like it. You're not very conservative in the sense that you have to, you know, you're very square in that sense that these are the things I can invest in. And the second thing is, you know, especially looking at, you know, I have several friends in Argentina. Everyone's a crypto trader, sophisticated crypto trader. And I'm not talking about, you know, people that work in markets or work in crypto. I'm talking about, you know, dancers, yoga teachers, athletes. These are, and they're using crypto for investing, for FX, for paying for things, all, you know, for as a store of value. Every possible, you know, use of crypto is being done in Argentina because you have a central bank that you can't really trust. And when you see the discussion in the mainstream crypto media, it's very US and EU centric in the sense that, oh, you know, and not only crypto media, I mean the main media. Why do we need an alternative to the dollar? Or why does a currency that doesn't have a central bank, you know, why is that useful? It's very useful. If you lived in a country that you can't really trust, you know, the authorities to take good care of your money, you know, you better have an alternative. And if you're presenting that, people will take it. I think that's what we're seeing in several countries in the region.
That's sorry. No, like like absolutely. Like that's probably the main difference between the developed world and then whatever Latin America or emerging markets. To say it politely, I was going to say underdeveloped, but it's emerging markets. But basically, like when you want to make the case for crypto in the US, it's pretty difficult. Like everyone has a bank account, in like banking services, it's difficult to make the case. It's probably the investment case is the number one case in the US. And the central bank, well, this is probably very debatable, but like the central bank in the US and the dollar is probably much better than the Argentinian peso, the Mexican peso in terms of stability. But when you go to these emerging markets, you have all these sort of like use cases, and then that you can show to regulators, that you can show to policymakers, and it's easier to make the case for crypto in Latin America. And like Argentina, every Argentinian should be a macroeconomics teacher. They know tons about it. It's crazy.
No, it's true. And I was talking to somebody before the panel. So we're starting to see inflation in the U.S., right? And we're like, yeah. Prepare yourselves for the ride, because we've been there. And I was saying, you see some PhDs commenting. Any housewife in Brazil knows more about inflation than most PhDs, because they live through it. Like when you live through a stage in which you go to the grocery store and prices are changing all the time, like 3 times a day, and after that balls out, like the analogy I use is it's playing soccer, for those who play soccer, in the hill. If the ball starts going down, you don't get it back. And inflation's like that. And after Brazil went into that in the 70s, we remember how long it took and how hard it was, and the level of like the geniuses that needed to get together to get a plan right to break it, right? So I think it's a cautionary tale for coming from those who have lived through it. Don't treat this lightly, because after it starts, you can't get the genie back in the bottle, and hopefully it won't be big, but keep an eye out.
Okay. So over the past few years, we have seen fintech in LatAm booming. A lot of investment is flooding into fintech companies, and more recently to companies that are now focused on crypto and have a crypto strategy or a digital asset strategy. So how do you guys plan on continuing to differentiate yourself in a market that does innovate so rapidly?
Through investment as well, and building and partnerships, right? So I think that there is no other way. We try to develop as much as we can. We have a huge and very good technologists in Itaú, but we don't know this business that well. So we have to rely, nobody knows actually, but we have to rely on those that knows more than us, right? So that's why we go through the investment to a startup that is a tokenization platform plus an exchange and building it. So, but I think that partnerships and relying on other companies, I think that is the way to go.
I think it's, touching on some of the other panels in the morning, is building for how the market's going to be, taking advantage of these market cycles that we've been through. This, if we're going into a building phase, it's a great phase for building, because those who are just, curious about the space, they'll quit, and those who are committed to it will continue building on top of that and skate to where the puck is going. There's not, not a lot of magic. I think in the firm, especially, and this is something I believe will be a difference for all true crypto firms, is if you truly embrace the crypto ethos and have that as your Northern Light, or Southern Cross for us in Brazil, it will, when it comes to making decisions on the right thing for crypto, I think that's it. And it comes from understanding what crypto means and what it can be. So even if a large institution like Itaú, if the internal team there, focused on digital assets, has the hearts in the right place, as this is something that's important for the world, it will give them the energy to go through these down phases. If it's just opportunistic and say, I have this product, let me launch an ETF, let's this and that, other priorities will take over. So I think over time, those who really believe in the importance of what we're doing, they'll have a better shot of prevailing.
Yeah, no, like I think it's all covered, but like usually we're like as humans, we're very bad at we usually overestimate technology in the short term and underestimate technology in the long term. So I think that's happening in Latin America. Like it's now like like the market is down, like it was a bubble, blah blah blah, and then that time is when the builders, like I think Bitso is that kind of company. We've been through 3 of these, and like this is the periods where you build stuff, And you hear a lot about this in the industry, but now we're building use cases and practical, like our thesis is basically people shouldn't, like if they want to know about crypto and how it works and the blockchains and blah, 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 they can do that. But if they just, like probably it's going to be like with engines, cars, electricity, the internet, basically you use it. And nobody knows what's behind. It just needs to be secure and someone to make it secure and trustworthy. And I think that's the way to go. And the opportunity in Latin America, the size of the inefficiencies in the banking system is huge. And that's why a lot of VC capital is getting into crypto and into fintech.
What do you guys think of NFTs?
Well, we developed Players Bank, right? That's a bank for gamers. We are in the beta version, so we are going to work with NFTs. This is something that we cannot go out of the new generation, and we believe that we have to learn with them as well. So we have a Discord channel, so that's where they come to us and they provide feedback. So I think that this is something that we are learning with the market. And for this generation, we have to pay attention, right? How they are going to get into the financial industry, right? The financial system. Most of them do not have, some, not most, but some do not have a bank account. So we are allowing them to have a bank account that can, the process for you to buy a skin, right? Is like you have to get your parent credit card, you have to buy here in US. Oh, your credit card cannot buy in US. So you cannot get into the game, right? It's very difficult. So many times I have to send cards and I have to buy here in GameStop, right? I used to do that. And now we can see that it's a generation that needs to be integrated in the financial industry. So I think that at least for the metaverse strategy and for the gamers, the Players Bank strategy, we cannot get out of the NFT market. I'm not a collector, so I do not buy one. But we are working and using the infrastructure and the technology.
Yeah, like Bitso is not in the moment into NFTs, so like institutionally, the institutional answer is probably not much. Just personally, it's super fun. NFTs are like a really cool technology. I don't know if it's gonna be like CryptoKitties and what happened in the past. Who knows? Like we're experimenting as an industry, but it's just like fun to think about like property rights with NFTs and like how the art world works. And like just personally, I think it's fascinating. I don't have a lot of my wealth into NFTs. I don't know if luckily or not luckily, because a lot of people have made a lot of money, but like, yeah.
And lose
a lot of money. So yeah, I'm excited personally, but like just an experiment, no?
Yeah, no, I think it's, even if, NFTs will lead to several things, and people all the time say, oh, you can do this with, assets that are unique and so on and so forth. Even the use case today, which is sometimes being dismissed as, oh, this is just, this is nothing, JPEGs and stuff. I think that's missing the point on human psychology and very deeply. Because, why do people buy Hermes bags or Patek Philippe's? If you're going only through status symbols and you have a digital status symbol, ask a 20-year-old kid if he'd rather have, a bag or a Bored Ape. Like, there's no comparison, right? How do you show status in the digital realm? And that leads to several things. Like, for those of you who know that guy, Punk 6529, his vision is that, if we're going to have a metaverse, we better have an open metaverse not controlled by anyone. And in an open metaverse, people want to see the assets that are unique and that are there. So let's concentrate. Let's huddle all of these assets so that we can give them public access instead of having a Picasso in the wall of some billionaire that nobody's seeing, right? So it's I think it's cool. I'd like to have some apes. I missed that on.
Also, it's probably it's a double-edged sword, no? It's an opportunity, like a Trojan horse for the crypto. Like there are a lot of these like cool products that is like a Trojan, like crypto is a Trojan horse for people to learn about finance, to learn about how the monetary system works. It's cool to learn about that through crypto. It's not very cool, like if you go to a monetary system class, like I did in my economics class. But but the other side of the sword is like these things are used by detractors of the crypto industry. Every time there's a bubble, it's like you guys failed, no? And so it's like basically a double-edged sword. And regulators say like, people lost money, blah, blah, blah.
But then like, it's, you know, everyone that missed Bitcoin at 500, 1,000, 2,000, like, it's the same thing. You know, there's some envy there of the people that made it. And I remember looking at apes at like 2 ETH, 3 ETH, and really thinking about it deeply for like a couple of weeks and thinking, you know, should I buy this and stuff? But then, you know, for those of us who've been some time and believe in Bitcoin at $1 million or something, I always, any number that I look, I say, what if Bitcoin is at $1 million? What does that mean? So that's how much an ape costs. It's not 2 ETH, right? And then it passed, as so many things have passed. There's so many ways I've lost as an investor personally, but that can't cloud my judgment on whether something has value or not, or if people like it or not. You know, if people like it, they like it.
Also, I think that there is a lot of education that needs to be done in that sense, because people do not understand what they are buying as well, and what they're making, actually. Because a lot of other line of business came to me and say, oh, okay, you have a platform. Can you build NFTs? I say, yes, I can. Okay, can you build one for me? I say, yeah, what color? Like, you know, they do not know what you can have behind it. Like, what's the purpose? How you are going to affect the client, right? What's the benefit of it? Is going to evaluate? Is not like, so what's the purpose, right?
This is true.
So I have to educate them.
A couple NFTs, one of which was connected to a horse racing game. I had no idea. I could have used some education. I bought it at 200. It's probably at 200 or less. So, well, there that goes.
Well, there's someone, I'm going to say whom in this audience, that actually had the option of getting a cap on the from the block from the there was this like cap or an NFT, and this guy was like, I'll get the cap. It's much cooler. And then the NFT went all the way to $10,000. Yeah, now I don't know. Do you still have the cap? I mean, sorry.
That's why we're lawyers, we're not portfolio managers. So, you know.
It's a nice cap. It's a $10,000 cap.
Okay, guys, we're running out of time here, so let's wrap up. So final question, you know, what's next for each company? Where are you looking to prioritize both globally, expansion, product expansion?
So starting with Itaú, we are betting on digital assets, right? That's where we are going. But by the same time, we are learning a lot with crypto. We are offering to our clients first through ETFs. Now we are going through to offer through an exchange. So we are discussing also with regulators. So as soon as we have more clarity on that, I think that we can go wild on it. But from now, we are betting on digital assets and tokenization platforms, stablecoins. So I think that for that, we know better, right, how to do it.
I think we're going to double down on Latin America. I think that's what we're going to do. And we're going to double down on the services we're going to offer that make crypto useful in Latin America. And that's the mission, make crypto useful and revolutionize finance for Latin America. That's it.
For us, it's the vectors are the large markets globally, the large stock exchanges, because that's where, you know, and especially large ETF markets. So that's always what drives the decision. And then on top of that, you have how's regulation now, how's acceptance now, can I get something across, how's distribution. So we have a roadmap in some places covering most of Europe. We have the products trading there now. The US also, you know, picking up steam, and some interesting things will be launching in a few weeks. And then just, you know, other large markets. That's how, because in the end, you know, the work of opening up a smaller country or a large one, it's the same. You know, still have to build team, and so you have to think where you can make an impact.
You should try a startup inside a
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being here with us. And if anyone has any questions, we'll be outside. Oh, sure.
So I'm Brazilian as well. So I understand the Brazilian market. Growing up with the huge inflation, I remember my dad going to the grocery store and they get paid because the next day it's the work class, right? So Brazilian behavior, we all know it's everybody fintech minded now, right? The traditional banks are there, still need them. But, you know, because the Brazilians are so digitalized now, do you think that specifically on Itaú's side, do you see you launching a product that will benefit, like easing up the payments using crypto, right? Because you know how the credit card and debit card expansion in Brazil, it also with PIX, like revolutionize the market, right? Especially for the small businesses. They think that you launching a product that can allow people to pay in crypto will be also revolutionized in Brazil or any other Latin American country.
We are assessing. I particularly do not believe that it's a currency. So for me, I have to deal with this with other line of business as well, and trying to get a sense about how volatile it is. Can we provide this to our clients or not? How can we manage this with the stores itself? Who's going to hold this? So we are assessing this through several exchanges, and we have a credit card company as well that we are working on it. I think that can be an option. I don't think that crypto will be a way of payment, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, Brazil has the best payment system in the world.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because of the inflation.
Yeah, and
20 years ago we had real-time payments.
And
right?
central real-time payments is something, the level of service that we have today as customers of Brazilian banks, it's unparalleled, right? So normal payments, if I were like an early, starting a company now, that's not what I would do definitely. I think there are other things in Brazil that make more sense in the crypto space.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all right, thank you guys.
Thank you.